John Robbins with SASilverstars.com here with General Manager and soon-to-be former head coach Dan Hughes. Coach Hughes, let me first say, I think you'll always be coach to us going forward. But just talk a little bit today about what's going to happen with your position.
Well, you know, one of the great things I've found in coaching in over 30 years is when you watch and you have a wonderful staff. I've had great staffs here in San Antonio. But when you watch an assistant coach evolve to the point where she or he is ready for their own team, that's what we have here. We have a situation in Sandy Brondello who I think is absolutely ready to be the head coach of the Silver Stars and allow me to focus my entire efforts on the GM position and even get out in the community more and do some of the things that it's been very difficult in a dual role to do. Sandy is, without question, an invaluable piece to the last 5 years here in San Antonio. When I came here in 2005, I took the job and I was driving to scout at Notre Dame and I got a phone call from a number I didn't know. It was Sandy Brondello, who was ready to transition from playing, being an all-star player, being a world-class player, into being a coach, and wondered if there was a spot on my staff. And I immediately, wow, that was a phone call that resonated to me. And I have watched her, and our players have watched her evolve from an incredibly knowledgeable player into an incredibly knowledgeable coach. And she has been coveted by other teams in our league for this position. It is time for her to take that step with us, and I'm just very excited and real joyful. I get great pride in watching assistant coaches that we've worked with become a head coach. Sandy will be the fourth that I've had the pleasure to be involved with in that move, and she is more than ready to accept that challenge.
Now, when you came here in 2005, you changed the culture quite a bit from one that was, a losing mentality, a losing team, into a very successful team. Sandy obviously falls into that, those key roles that you needed of people to come in here and take over and make that happen. Just talk about what she's going to bring as the head coach, as a standalone head coach, as opposed to just an assistant coach going forward.
Well, it's a great situation because Sandy has always had the ability to relate to the professional player, players from all over the world. She has done an incredible job of bringing those players and the knowledge base that she brought to it, the way she played the game, the way she's now studied the game, and she can relate to them. She relates to the professional player incredibly well. The second thing I've watched, and it's been an absolute joy to watch her become a teacher. She went from a performer and a knowledgeable to a good teacher. I remember a moment in the locker room when she was doing a scouting report in the past year, and that's when I kind of knew her time was really, really ready. She's doing this scouting report, and she's engaging the team. And I look over at a couple of the veterans, and we're talking about, the Vicki Johnsons and people like that, and they made eye contact with me, and no word was spoken, but everybody understood. She has evolved into a master teacher. She has evolved into a coach that's ready for her own team. And we all looked at each other, and it was almost funny. It was a great moment because we all were seeing the same thing in Sandy. She's going to bring I think her offensive mind is incredibly gifted, and people are going to love what she brings to that area. She is going to bring a presence. This is a woman who has gone through a lot of experiences, and every experience she's had has been a successful one. And this one will be no different here in San Antonio.
And just talk a little bit about your transition. Obviously, you're giving up that dual role of coach and general manager. What's your role going to be like going forward solely as a general manager?
Well, I think a couple things. I think it allows me to focus even more energy in that role, in player development, in scouting, in working within the structure of our organization. I feel very good that our organization is a model throughout the WNBA as far as the people that work with us and like that. But we want to get better. And it allows me to focus on some of those areas. I can be even out in the community more. I love being out in the community. I love being a part of the San Antonio community from a basketball standpoint, from a Silver Star standpoint. all across the board. And I think it allows me to do that. But it also allows me to continue to mentor Sandy and Olaf as they move along. It is their team, but I will do everything I can to make that transition for them smooth, successful. I think we have all enjoyed working with each other, and we continue to work with each other in a way that I think fits each of us right now where we are at the different stages of our career.
Obviously, you're comfortable with Sandy taking over. What was the decision process like for you when you decided that it was time to make this change, and was it hard to make that decision?
Well, sure, it's hard. But I think the one thing I've learned here coming into the Spurs organization is no matter what, you're constantly evaluating how can you do things better. How can you get to that sweet spot time and time again, and how can you get to that? And as I looked at different factors in this situation, the growth of Sandy, the timing, she has been coveted by other teams, and I think it is her time. So I knew I had somebody I believed in there, and I also knew that I would like to develop a greater focus of what I was doing. That dual role was a very unique one, and I held it for over 4 years in regard to it. And as we go forward in the WNBA, and as we realize it's an ever-changing league, this was a way that I thought we could work together and maybe even work together more effectively to give the product here in San Antonio all the attention that it needs.
That'll do it for us. John Robbins here with San Antonio Silver Stars General Manager and former coach Dan Hughes for SASilverstars.com.